This is Sarah Heredia, and you are listening to the Freely You podcast. Our time together is meant to inspire you to think bigger and empower you to live your life in a way that makes you proud to be you. I believe that the only box you should fit in is the one that you build for yourself, and I'm here to help you lay the foundation. My journey has taught me that we all deserve to create our own definition of success while meeting ourselves with love and a playful curiosity. My goal is to provide practical tools and fresh perspectives so you can rewrite your story, start living your life on purpose, and ultimately become more freely you. Yeah, and that is actually something that I wanted to talk to you about, because the thing that you had said that triggered me was we're talking about, motherhood, and it's like it's this divine role that we get to play, and it is a privilege and it's an honor, and we should treat it like that. And you were talking about, like, if you need a break from your kids, like, what's actually wrong with you, in so many words, is what you were saying. And I was like, I do need a break from my kids, Angel, but I do, and I don't want to be wrong for that. So tell me, like, you truly never need a break from your kids. That's a true statement.
That is a true statement. Yes. And I'm so glad that you were triggered by that. And because when I said it, I was like, oh my God, I just said that. I freaked out a little inside that I had said that publicly. It was a few days after that. I'm like, oh my God, I just said that. So I don't know who's going to hear that, but I said that out freaking loud in like social media arena. And yes, there's again a very delicate and beautiful, like so beautiful line between wanting and needing. I want time away from my kids from time to time. I don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the need. And people may block out here because they're like, oh, she's being into semantics, blah, blah, blah. But there's a really, really powerful line, and it's a super soft one, really, to recognize in yourself if you need it and what's going on, and to get honest with all of that, to wanting it. Like the other night, I knew I had some stuff coming up, and I bathed with my kids all the time. So we had a bath, the kids were out, my husband was home, but he got a phone call and he was talking to some friend about something, and the kids were like, Mama. I was like, I just wanted 15 minutes. You said you could do this. And he was like, oh crap. Like, he just got wrapped in his own stuff and he kind of forgot, but then enough time had passed that the baby just wanted me. And he's like, I can't handle this. The baby just wants you. And I didn't get that time at all. I was like, so I put the candle on. I did the thing anyways. I brought the baby in the tub with me, and I did the ugly cry with the baby, and he calmed down immediately. He was like, okay, Mama just needs me to be here. And he was the snuggliest little bath dweller ever. And because what I needed, and maybe I'll ask you this too in a moment, but like, what I needed was to cry. What I needed was a safe space to cry. We're told that we need to do that away from our kids. So that's a narrative that I just don't believe in. Why do you need the time? Why can't you get what you need with them and show them that it's okay?
Yeah.
And not have to run out, and I'm not saying solid, maybe it's to go take a yoga class, but why do we have to separate ourselves from that which we really want and we know is nourishing and is all the beautiful stuff? Why do we need that? You can want it. You can want a moment alone for sure. Be like, you know what? I want to go out and I want to talk with my girlfriend, and I want to swear. I want to drop all the F-bombs, and I want my kids to hear it. You just want to like go that way. Like, have at it, go for it, do it. But to need it is from a place of, it's from a place of lack. It's from a place of scarcity. It's from a place of fear. Is that I have what's here isn't enough. I need to go out there to find it. And just fundamentally, you don't find anything you need out there. I don't believe that to be true, whether it's out at a yoga class or whether it's outside of your children, outside of your home, outside of your family, because you're just trying to run away from something in yourself. So, and it's getting really, really freaking honest with yourself about what it is that I need. Again, in that moment, I just needed a safe place to cry. And it comes back to, again, not feeling confident, and also not feeling safe.
So you do want time away from your kids. Do you think it's healthy to want time away from your kids?
Um, I don't really want time away from my kids. I don't. Yes, that's not true. That's not true. My husband and I spend some very saucy time together in the evenings, and I don't want my kids around for that. That's time I want away from my kids. But I guess I kind of said it was easy for me to not put that together because they're sleeping. It's not like
Mm.
I'm not saying I want time away from you, like you're asleep and that's my time to, get saucy. But like really like in times when they're awake, there's not a time where I don't want to be with them. And
Yeah.
I do like I bring them everywhere with me. Like I was at the vet yesterday getting the dog her like 3 month whatever she was getting into, and uh even the vet was like, "You're amazing." And I was like, "Oh, thank you. Tell me more." He's like, "You're super mom. Like, look at you." And I didn't even have both the dogs with me. Like usually we're out, we got both the kids, both the dogs, and I don't have a stroller. Like I don't do the double kid stroller thing because they don't want to be in a stroller. They want to be on me. Like I'm piggybacking her on the back and I'm carrying him in the front and I'm walking the two dogs. And sure, some people probably look at that. They're like, this woman is crazy. I would never want to do that. How does she have these superpowers? But that's just what I want. I want
Mm.
my babies on me. I want them to hold me. I want them I just, and that's just what I want. I don't think every woman has to want that, her motherhood, but it does matter. It does matter what you want. It does matter what you want your motherhood to look like. The women that I talk to and the mothers I hear, they're like, "Oh, I want this, and this, but I can't because of my past." It's always my past. It's always the trauma in my past or the trauma. It's always trauma in the past. It could be a marriage. It could be your childhood. It could be your job. It could be your PTSD from Lord knows what, but it's always the past. And I don't treat any trauma in anybody's past lightly. Knowing the trauma that I've had in mine. And I've got like, people say the big T trauma, there's like the little traumas, there's like the big ones. Like I was like sexually assaulted at a young age. Like that's messed up. So I feel you when people are coming to the table with like, but I can't because this is so big. Like you can. You absolutely can. And I think for women and mothers, it really comes down to safety. When that trauma memory first came up to me, it came in kind of like a little glimpse where I knew what happened, but I didn't like see it. It wasn't like a crystal clear memory of what had happened. And I remember it took me about 2-3 weeks to tell my husband about it. And I was sitting with him and he was like, "Do you want a hug?" And I was like, "Yeah." Because we were sitting like opposite ends of the bed, like as far like at the diagonal sides of the bed, like as far away as we possibly could have been. And I was like, "Yeah, I'll receive this hug now." And like I was like doing the little spoon thing. And as he held me, I was just weeping. And in the safety of that moment, when I'd opened myself up to just receive the love that he had for me, he's like, "I don't know what to do or say here, but I can hold you." And I felt the love that he had for me. The memory became very clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and then I was just weeping more because I was like, holy shit, now I know. And it was awful. But it was in the safety of that space that we had created, that we chose to create, and I allowed to be. And again, it doesn't have to be a big trauma thing for us to have that safe space. It's just safe to be you. It's safe to want what you want, and I don't think that every mother in this lifetime, like living on this planet, is meant to have this experience that I am. Because there's going to be women who are like, "But I don't want that." And fine, like don't want it. But there are so many women out here who want what I have and don't know what's possible and don't know how to get it and are sitting there at home being like, having the mom guilt.
Yeah.
Like I
Or
wish
just
I wish I could be that way. I wish I could feel that way. I wish I could act that way. I wish I could, I don't know, be crafty and creative and do, I don't know, all the things that I am, that people say often to me that they wish they could have or be or do or say. And so that's, if you want that, then you can have it. If you don't want it, that's also cool. I don't know why you wouldn't. It's beautiful, but
I mean, I agree with that. And I do think it's available to all of us, but I do think that some people are more, it's you, it, parenting does not seem to stress you out in the way that it does others.
Yeah.
So what do you see as like, I understand that there is choice in that. There's choice in how we show up. There's choice in how we respond. But if we are somebody, and I guess I'm kind of like answering my own question as I'm saying this, but it is like, if we are somebody that's anxious or heightened, like obviously we have our shit that we need to deal with on our own. And that's bleeding into our motherhood at that point, right? Like um, it's not your kids that are stressing you out. You're stressed out. Like you're heightened, you're anxious. Your kids are just there and it's almost like a scapegoat, right? Like my
And
kids are stressing me out.
nobody wants that for their kids. And again, it's accepted. It's motherhood stressful. Doesn't have to be.
Mm.
It is for the majority, 100%. I don't deny that. I also live in the world of possibility. I don't just accept this is the way it has to be for women, because I'm a living example, and I didn't come from it. It wasn't shown to me. Nobody emulated this kind of life for me at all. Still not.
So what has, as far as like your choice goes, because you are an entrepreneur, so you do your work from home, and so you do have the ability to educate your children. What did you say? Tell me again.
I cultivate an environment for inspired learning.
That's right. So you have that opportunity to cultivate that environment. And I think a lot of women would argue like that's not an option for me. Like I work full time, I'm a provider for my family, et cetera, et cetera. And the kind of like the norm is to send your kids to school and to work the 40-hour-a-week job. And so what would you say to that mother that's like kind of disconnected from this conversation, that's like, well, that's you because you are able to sit there and be available for your children all day to feed off you and to come up with these creative projects and to make the plant medicine and all the things. And like I'm over here busting my ass in a 40-hour-a-week job that I commute to and, you know.
Yeah, it really comes down to just like sheer radical honesty. Somebody say, well, that's not an option for me. I say, well, it's not going to be an option for you if you say that it's not. My I asked my husband the other day if I could say this because he was like, he's a financial provider for this family, and he works very hard, and he does miraculous things. But he's like, when I started my company, I was drunk, stupid, and stoned, and I figured it out. He's not drunk or stupid or stoned anymore. But he was 26 years old. He had not begun any healing work. He was just a walking trigger from his own childhood wounds. Like he was a mess. And what he's built, because he's been willing to not give up on it, because that's what we said. And there are many times in our previous years where he was like, you got to get a job. And I said, nope. And it was a thing. I shouldn't laugh, but I did. That was not what we agreed upon. So the child is here, and we agreed that you would be the financial provider while I was home raising the children. That means you got to figure it out. I'm here to support you, but I'm not willing to sacrifice what these children chose me for because you can't figure it out. It's not a lack of capacity. Anybody can do it. And I know it's just like, well, I don't have that option. Maybe it's a single mom. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a single mom and she's like, I can't afford to live here and feed my kids if I don't go to work. Well, then what if you lived somewhere else? What if you didn't have that house with that rent or that mortgage? And what if you didn't live in that city where groceries were that price? I mean, there's so many options. So again, I'll get to how to make like a simple step to that in a moment. But to have that vision where it is possible. If you're always saying it's not an option for me, it's not an option for me. People say to me all the time, "You're so lucky, Angel. It must be nice." I say, "Do you have any idea what my husband and I have been through to get here?" And it's because I was unwilling to give up on what I knew to be the truth, is that I am here to raise these children. I'm not going to sacrifice it for money. Are you kidding me? You're going to wave some dollar bills in my face and say that this bill can't get paid? I don't care. We'll go bankrupt and we will go, but I don't care. Like it was never that. I just knew that it was not something like, look at these faces. I couldn't. I never could. And I think but that's big and it's scary. It's so big. Like, I'm going to lose everything in my life right now. Like what's important to you? And again, it's getting clear because when it's in our minds, it's this big chaotic mess. I'm going to lose my house. I can't feed my kids, this and that. Like, one thing I know to be true is that we don't, things don't present themselves the way we think that they should in this life. Things don't turn out the way that we thought they would. I never thought that this would be me, that I would own this house on this land in this expensive city. And this summer, we're probably going to tear the roof off and throw another story on the house. And we're going to take that land from that other guy in the back and get a bigger property. All of these things, right? I wasn't, and raising my kids, and we're barefoot in the backyard, and we're, we got all of our nature, our natural magic things going on, and all of the things, like all of the beautiful things. This was never my dream. But like at 19, my dream was to have a son at the age of 24, like my mom did, and have a daughter at the age of 26, like my mom did, and, do the things that made me pick, because that's what we had seen. And then just following those inclinations, I'm like, well, this doesn't feel right. I am going to wear the pink floral skirt with the teal geometric shirt that everybody's like, that doesn't match. I'm like, but it feel good. It's following all those little urges along the way. So it doesn't just happen overnight. It's not something that just shifts. And like I have been to the depths of hell and dug deeper. I was very willing at some points in my life to try to go deeper. And I've been to the darkest places where there was even a moment in my life where there was a little voice in my head that's like, you should just kill yourself. And I never attempted it, but I mean, there's like, to be honest about like, how far are you willing to go? So many people are so willing to go down that dark, to go down that deep. What if you're willing to go a different way? What if something else was possible? What if it was an option for you? Then what would that look like? Okay, well, maybe it's not quit your job and just hope that the universe is going to give you a way to magically pay for your rental and raise your kids. But what can you do today that helps you feel like it is a possibility? Maybe you just wake up and you're like, what if it was an option for me? That's it. What if you practice that every day? What if it was an option? And I can't even, I could think of a million and one scenarios of what could possibly come through like that, because my mind's just very imaginative that way. But then it's an option.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be that simple to just get it started. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a mom out there who loves her kids, and this all of a sudden is walking down the street one day, trips and falls in the face of a millionaire who's just like, I want to, here's my mansion, raise your kids, just let me be with your beautiful, I don't know, like anything, crazy things are possible. It happens in the movies, and anything really is possible. And I'm not saying that is for everybody, but if you're not willing to just really stand in what you want, I walked out the door on my husband in 2019, and I was like, no, we're done. I'm not standing for this shit anymore. And I was looking for the rentals. I was like, all right, I'm going to be divorced again. I've got a kid now. That's fine. Still got the same dog with me. She's super cool. And the next day my husband got sober, and he hasn't had a drink since. But I didn't know he was going to do that. In fact, well, you bumped your arm. I'm sorry, puppy. In fact, I was actually certain that he would never do that. It was just, he's in the construction industry and it's just something super casual. People have, it was just, I was certain that he was never going to do it. And I just looked at myself in the mirror one day, and I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. As my dog, I'm hiding in the bathroom. I was hiding in the bathroom. That's when the bathroom reference comes out. And my daughter was there, my dog was there. And I was like, I can't live with myself. I can't raise my daughter this way. So I just walked out the door, and everything changed. And look at our life. My husband says he knows now. He's like, if you wouldn't have done that, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And it was a big and scary thing to do. Like, I left our home. I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't make any money at that time at all. But it didn't matter, because you have to know what's important. And then we change our priorities daily. Like, but this is important, that's important, this is important. Just know. And if you're a mother, it's got to be your kids.
Yeah. And I do think it is like those bold moves, right? And I feel like, so speaking of like the mom guilt, I feel like for me, a lot of the guilt that I do carry in motherhood, it comes from when my children were younger, and for being so committed to my career. And in my mind, the reason that I was so committed to my career was to provide my children a better life than I had, and to show them that there's more possibility than what they see. And in all that, I got lost. I got lost in caring more about a paycheck than the quality time with my children, like caring more about like providing for them than providing them like just the love and the attention that they need. So that is a very real example of mom guilt, but it did require me to take bold action and to totally walk away from a career that, on paper looked great, to have more time with my children, and eventually to start my own business and to put it all on the line for more time with my children. And like,
He's
it's
cheering you
not
on.
always, what's that?
He's cheering you on. He's like,
Oh, right. Yeah. It's not always the easy path, though, I think is the point. It's like, it's how big of a priority is it to you? And I guess a question for you, because of, obviously you are passionate about the way that you live, and it appears to come easy for you. And you talk a lot about like this sacred motherhood. Do you feel like the mothers that are like, in the very career oriented and dropping the kids off at daycare and all those things, do you think that they are doing their children a disservice in that? Like, do you think that they're forsaking their role as the sacred motherhood?
yes, I do. And it's also not up to me. From where I stand, from what I know motherhood to be, and I'm talking like big vision. I'm not talking like you specific person there in Baltimore. I don't know. Maybe somebody's listening in Baltimore. It's yes, this is not what motherhood's supposed to be. I think if and is that where this particular soul is on her journey? No. But do I really wholly believe that she's going to come back here and do it again and do things a little bit differently and have the opportunity to do it differently? Yes, I do. We're not all on the same path on our journeys in this world, and I know I have awareness of two past lifetimes where my husband and I have kind of sorry, those who can't see me, like been in existence together. And that's why we're so very intensely passionate with one another now. And that goes for like the good passionate and like the passionate, is because we've been longing to be together for a really long time. And this is our heaven on earth life here. We've worked and we've moved through so much in past lifetimes to be here, to have this life for our children. And I know this is not just wisdom from this life for me. This is stuff that I have moved through and carried prior to this. And women might not be at this place yet. They're if that's like, nope, that's what I want. I want to do this and that. So is it doing their children a disservice? I think that that's unfair to say that it's doing their children a disservice. Because their children have their own soul journeys as well, right? And that's not for me to know. So I do believe that our children choose us for a specific reason, to learn the lessons that they need to. Is the ultimate soul goal to have this experience like I am with my children? I believe that to be true. Is that what's going to be for everybody in this lifetime? I don't think so. But do I believe that they're going to come back and try it again and get here? Yes, I really do. I think when I think, is it the ultimate goal? Yes, it's the ultimate soul goal, but it might not be the physical goal for this life. And in terms of you, if I may just go back to your mom guilt, on that ties into you as well. Like, if that may alleviate some guilt for you, your children chose you for a reason, and you being willing to like be honest and make those bold moves for you, that's the kind of impact on a soul level that your children fucking chose you for.
Yeah.
So to look at that time and be like, I did them a disservice, but that's all that needed to happen for you to get to that point where like they've now seen you, they've experienced you, and they felt you in this journey, which is what we want for our kids. We want them to experience life in their own way. They're going to fall and they're going to feel like, maybe I could have, maybe you think you could have done this sooner. That's where the guilt's coming from. You're like, but now that I know this, you're back framing it saying I should have known that then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do agree that our children choose us, and that They are here to teach us very valuable lessons. And yeah, I think as far as the guilt goes, that doesn't always alleviate it, you know, and it's like, you said it earlier, it is like that letting go piece, right? It's like letting go of the past, letting go of, you know, yeah, we can talk about what we should have, could have, would have done differently all day long, but
Right.
at some point, the acceptance is like, is that regret, is that guilt holding you back from being the mother that you want to be now because you're holding on to that?
And there's a really beautiful piece that comes into play with like, how do you let go? It's not a physical thing. I can't just like, toss a handkerchief in the wind and have it blow away. It's forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
To forgive yourself. To say, I didn't know then what I know now. And like actually forgive yourself. And how does one forgive? It's a process that I think will look different for a lot of people. And you and I can maybe talk about that in another realm of like how to forgive. But it comes with a willingness to forgive. Like, I forgive you because you've forgiven other people. I know you have in your life for things. So how did you do that? And then apply that to how you can possibly forgive yourself. And that I think really is a pivotal piece in allowing you to be in the present moment and to alleviate that mom guilt. Like, sure, let it go. Because we can brain it as much as we want. Like, our logical mind is a beautiful tool, and we often misuse it. And saying, okay, well, I choose to let go of it. I understand it. And then also, once you understand it, that's a beautiful level to reach. And then we have to continue integrating it so that we can embody it. Like, all of a sudden there will be this day you're like, oh my God, I get it. I love me. And then you're playing that like, I love me and I love myself. And all of a sudden you're jamming out and then you feel it. It's not just some words that you're trying to feel. You will one day feel it, but it's a practice, and it comes back to like, how do you get from maybe that single mom who says it's not an option for me to live this beautiful life that you do. It starts with just being willing to play with the idea that maybe it is possible. What if that was an option for me? What if it was an option for me to not feel guilty about this? What if it was an option for me to forgive myself? It's like, just what if? Because we do the what ifs all the time. Like, what if my kid gets hit by a bus when they're crossing the street to go to school? And what if I don't, but all the things that we know, what if, we have trained ourselves, and we've been trained this way, but we continue to regurgitate it to be so hyper aware of all the bad things that can happen. What would it be like if we just practiced being really hyper aware of all the good things that could happen?
Yeah.
And what's on the opposite side of guilt? So if you're feeling guilty, then what do you want to be feeling? Okay, guilt, we don't want that. What do you want?
Yeah. Peace, ease, forgiveness. Yeah.
And here we are. Okay, well, now I want peace. And we do this so much. We know what we don't want. Well, I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to be overwhelmed. And there's a lot of beautiful coaches in the online space and the physical space that you can connect to that will help you recognize what it is you don't want, because some people don't even. They're so overwhelmed that I don't even know what's going on here. And then just recognize it and then let it go. It doesn't need to be analyzed. It doesn't need to be dug into. We don't need to go to hell and keep digging. Say, okay, like, because there's always going to be like, once you hit rock bottom, you bounce up. Well, some people hit rock bottom and start digging.
Yeah.
Then they find a lake and then they drown some more, and then they find another rock bottom and then they keep digging. There is, I don't think there's truth to that really, because you'll find if you want to keep digging, you're going to keep digging and it's going to get worse. It is that choice to just say, well, what if?
Yeah.
And be open to it being different, not being like, what if I bump into a millionaire and fall flat on his face and he gives me his mansion and I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Not being attached to that outcome that it's going to be this way. But what if there was a way for me to be, again, going back to the responsibility thing, and I'll pin that and just go to you for one moment, of the responsibility with your kids and your own forgiveness, not being responsible for how that affects them. It's like, I own it. It was mine. And I'm sure I know you well enough to know that I'm sure you've had some of these conversations with your children about what you're processing, right? Which is so beautiful. And this is why they chose you. So on their soul level down there, they're like, yippee, like, she figured it out. They're so freaking stoked for you. I don't know, maybe your kids aren't saying that on the outside, or they've probably thrown you a little party at some point. You have darling daughters. But on their soul level, they're so excited. And you feel it because you have those moments with your kids. And any mother listening, you have those moments with your children where you're just like, oh, yes, this is it. This is what I want. And it's so beautiful and it's easy. And it's just like everything slows down. You become that slow motion scene in the movie and everything's just so beautiful, you know? And it's a willingness to just have what you want. Like simple example right now. You can't see this, especially for those listening. You know, my son is standing on awkwardly on a chair and a stool. I'm bent over and he's twisting my one nipple and he's drinking milk from the other one. And there is sand everywhere because he also got into like my little Zen garden while we were recording this today. And you know, did I had planned for this to happen right now? But I want to be available to breastfeed my children when that's what they want from me, right? It probably doesn't, it probably looks hilarious, you know. And it's a simple example like that too. Also, like, what do you want to be satisfied in this moment? Do you want to be preparing delicious meals for your children, or do you want to order in from, I don't know, the organic little cafe down the street? I don't know. It's just, there's all like, we're given so many moments every single day to just stand for what we want. And
Yeah.
we don't live in a world where integrity and backbones are valued. We live in a world where sacrifice is valued. And you would have experienced this in your corporate world for sure. There is value in sacrifice for what you're going to have later. But you know what that breeds? You don't get what you want later. You know,
Yeah.
my mother-in-law is a shining example. You know, she's in her 60s now and she's still working her bones off for that day where someday she can retire and one more year, one more year, one more
Mhm.
year. And then you just where's the life, you know? And
Yeah.
there's so much you can unpack there as well. But we're like, what do you want today?
Well, and I think that is like that is the beautiful way that you live your life. And I try to live my life like this as well, but it's that believing in like the pure potential of it all, right? It's like it's hard for us to grasp that because it's not real and it's not predictable and it's not playing out exactly how we think it's going to, but it is just that belief. And to your point, like focusing on what we do want over what we don't want. And that is relatable to our relationship with our children as well. Like, um, not focusing on, yeah, the way that they're acting that we don't like, or the part of our relationship that we don't feel good about. It's like, what are the things that you're excited about in your motherhood? What are the things that lift you up in your motherhood, and focusing more on that.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, it's like the whole motherhood thing is like their childhood and our motherhood. Like it's the same. It's the same experience. I want to like mesh up a new word for it, you know, because there is that. And there are some beautiful people who are like, but don't forget, like their childhood is your motherhood. Like you get to enjoy it too, because there are some moms out there as well who are doing the martyr thing where they're like, I'm sacrificing myself for them. And they have a beautiful childhood, but I'm miserable. They're not having a beautiful childhood if you're miserable, period. So we need a new word, like, what is this? I don't know. We'll make it up.
It's like the
It'll
co-creation, right? Of whatever that
Yeah,
is.
and their experience, and I think a lot of the times my daughter and I, and my son particularly, we experience the same things because we're very intimately connected in the way we live our lives. But it is going to shift. Like I don't really know. No one ever really knows how anybody internalizes or perceives anything. It's just
Mhm.
you can tell at the end of the day, and you can tell in all the moments throughout your day. Like there's not a moment, there's not a day that goes by when there's not dozens of moments where my daughter is just like radiating blissful joy from her face in something that we have done or said or tasted or anything, and for me, like that's the sanctity of motherhood. It's like we live this life now. It's motherhood is not a task that you need to get through, like, oh, they've made it to 18, off you go. Like I want my mommy to mother me now. She's not capable. She's not. And it doesn't mean that there's not parts of me that don't want it. And some days where my husband holds me and I cry because I feel like my mommy doesn't love me, and that's mine. And my children aren't going to have that.
Yeah.
And I know that because of the choices that we're making. And you say it's not the easy path, in how we choose everything from how we choose to live. It's like the traditionals, like the new progressive, like, oh, you're a stay-at-home like wife, like, whoa, how do you do it? And And it's been some really tough choices and some really hard conversations that both my husband and I had to be willing to have, and we had to be willing to hold, because it's tough.
Yeah.
Tough not to be pushed around. And my husband never meant to push me around, being like, we got to pay our bills. You need a job. I said, no, we got to figure, and I moved from you got to figure it out to we got to figure it out. That was a trajectory in our own marriage as well. Like, we can figure this out.
Mm-hmm. What is that? Just, I am curious, what is your view on that? Like, as far as roles go with like mother versus father, do you kind of lean towards like the traditional, like father's the provider? And
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I fought it. I was, I had like my girl boss hashtag total phase where it's like wasn't going to be that way at all. And I know too much now about like the biology of motherhood and the physiology of motherhood and the psychology of motherhood to negate the fact that this is how nature intended. Like the wild mama, I know it's like the name of my podcast, but I basically decided just like this is my brand, this is my essence in life, is this wild mama, and it's to unleash your inner wild, like your beautiful essence, your beautiful magic, and it's for total motherhood restoration, like to restore motherhood to its natural state. And what's natural? To leave your child who wants to breastfeed with you at the age of 1 so you can go back to work at a job that you don't like because you need the money to do the thing. There's nothing natural about that. Me trouncing around naked in my backyard planting seeds with a baby hanging off my boob is natural.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's everything natural about that. And even from childbirth, I did have I think I was very blessed to have the hospital experience to birth my daughter that I did, but I free birthed my son at home. And it was the most extraordinary. Birth is always extraordinary. If I had enough room for all the babies, I'd give birth like every day. So that's how it works. It's like, I just love giving birth to babies. We're probably going to have like a whole clan here in no time, but it's, it's so magical. And I have to be really mindful with my own emotional and spiritual boundaries to not get caught up in how much people really are missing out, and you can have this experience in this lifetime for you. It doesn't need to take, you all right, Bubbers? It doesn't need to take 10 lifetimes for you to figure it out. It doesn't have to, it can, if that's the way that you want it to be. But we are so powerful, and we're we're held down, we're pushed down, we're told that we can't, we're told that's not the way it is, and then we accept it, and then we blame other people, and we live in this another victim mindset thing. It's just so big and trendy these days, like get out of your victimhood, but also just like get into your authority. Like stand, like when you put your feet on the floor in the morning, how do you feel about yourself? Do you feel strong? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel centered? Do you feel at ease? You say it's not easy. And I have my moments too where it's just like, I want my unicorns. Like, where are my unicorn mamas who want to flounce around in my backyard with me and practice natural magic and learn about herbs? Like, my daughter's the one going down the street picking plants and feeding them to her friends, telling them what they are and how good they are for her. Like, she's not even 6, like just things that she knows that I didn't know growing up, and again, maybe not your path in this life, but if you want it, if you feel that in your heart, you're like, oh, that would be so nice, then that's here for you now. And you can have it now. And I just don't think there's a lot, like I'm so excited that you invited me on here to do this, because people aren't talking about this in the way that you have opened up the conversation to speak about. And I've only recently started speaking really openly about like really what I value in the wisdom that I have. And it's not for everybody, like there's too many people on this planet for everybody to be like, yes, Angel, I totally get it. And that's not, because then I also don't think I'd have the experience of being me if everybody was just like, yay, Angel, people bump up against me all the time. And it's hard because, we don't fit in,
Well,
and
you're describing like a one end of the spectrum, right? Like it is very different that would sound extreme to some people, like to be naked in your backyard with a kid on your tit, like picking the berries, like that feels extreme to some people. But I think that like what I've always seen in your motherhood that I'm like, I want that. It's like the patience, the presence, and like you do embody that. And you actually had a post that I wanted to touch on, because you said, like, you know, you want to know the secret to unlimited patience in,
Yes.
and it's to pause. And like that seems so simple. So can you give me your spiel on that?
So elegant, isn't it? It's so
Mhm.
elegant. It's like the old Staples commercial, wasn't it? Like the easy button. Um, yeah, it's the pause. And sometimes it's a really long pause. I think that's the thing. People are like, okay, pause. And then they just freak out again the way they normally would. That's not a pause. I think the magic in the pause is pausing long enough to experience something different. And that's, I mean, for the patients, because patience is a really big one. Patience is a really big one with a lot of moms, and the ease comes from the patience. So if you can tackle the patience, not be like, I have all these things to tackle. If you can tackle the patience, then the ease really comes into play, and it's self-control, it's emotional regulation, it's mental control. Like it's like full authority over who you are and who you're being, and it takes practice. It's not like, oh, I have this practice. Angel said pause. I'm going to pause. You're not going to nail it the first time. Like I didn't.
Well, for a
But
lot of us, it's like rewiring our entire nervous
it
system
is.
to
And
be that.
inside that pause, so like the process is simple, just pause. What happens inside that pause is chaotic and erratic and messy and like opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to just really see what's going on. Because when we zoom past it and we just go back into reactivity and following on habits and saying the things you always say, and then after the fact we look back, we're like, oh no, I don't really believe that. I don't align with that. That's not the mother I want to be. All the mom guilt comes in. So it's the willingness to pause. So when you're in that moment, you're just like, it's like you're ready to just swing back and like unleash on whatever it is to pause. Like, and sometimes you like physically restrain yourself, if it's just like, I'm going to sit down, and because you can feel that reaction in you to just like defend, explain, fight, whatever it is. And to learn to control that. And there's so many techniques you can use inside that space of like physically restraining yourself. If you're a thrower, people like throw Tupperware. I threw Tupperware once. I can say that honestly. Whatever your actions are, what they are, right? So what do you need, and know ahead of time. So there is a pre-planning component in that as well. Okay, I'm gonna lose my crap. I know it's gonna happen, but I have these tools that I've set myself up with. So when I feel that way, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to close my eyes, I'm going to think about that time that I went to Tahiti and the beach was really beautiful and I felt ease there. Maybe that's it. I've never been to Tahiti, but so to have tools ahead of time, because if we're not preparing for it, what's going to happen. But then in the moment, we all of a sudden expect ourselves to be able to think of the way to do it. And in those moments of really intense reactivity, we don't have the capacity to do that. So if it's just knowing in your mind or having it written down, like a laminated list, I don't know, some people like that kind of stuff of like, just follow the steps. Okay. Instead of doing the thing, I'm going to pick up the list. Okay, sit down, take a deep breath. Like it's that part is a little individual, I think. And that would be something that, you or I would work through with somebody specifically to find the things that feel aligned for them to move through, and then just be like unwilling to falter on that. And it might be like, okay, I said sit down, step one, and then all of a sudden you're up again. Nope, go back to step one, sit down. But I said the thing, and having it be that messy, and having your child. I've had a couple of times where Ophelia, when she was younger, look at me like,
What are you doing?
what is happening here right now? And just be committed to doing it, and again, communication is so key in this, to the people that we're with, to our children and to our spouses, to immediate family or friends, whoever you're spending the time with, that what's going to happen with, like letting them know what you're up to. Like I'm really working on this area of myself. I don't want to be reactive this way. I want patience in my life. And this is a process that I've defined. You have to go into all the details. I have a process. So when this happens, like, just so they're not, a kid will be chill. They'll watch you and stare at you for probably half an hour and like try to figure you out, right? An adult will say, what are you doing? They'll confront you a little more about it. So having that communication so people know what you're doing, patience is so huge, and it's practice. And knowing that, like, and then be willing to celebrate. Be like, you know what? I only made it to step 2, but I made it to step 2. And then the kid will calm down, because when you start doing something like weird, like, let's be honest, they're gonna,
Yeah.
if they're the one that's triggering you and they're freaking out, they're gonna also show good. And having that faith in our kids, it comes back to that as well. I remember really early on when I started practicing this, and it was a Tupperware scenario where I do not remember what Ophelia was doing that was driving me batty, but I could feel it bubbling up in me, and I picked up the Tupperware and I threw it down the hallway, and I was like, enough, and I screamed it, and she just looked at me, obviously started bawling because it's super scary when mommy does that, and she was maybe, I don't know, maybe two and a half, and then I remembered what it was that I had said to committed to myself to do, which was to pause. I didn't do it, but I'm going to do it now. And I stood there and I stopped talking. For me, that's what it was, is just stop talking. Like, cover your mouth and just stop talking. And in that pause, within less than 60 seconds, she regulated herself. She came down from wherever she was and she regulated herself. And then we hugged. And it was all okay.
What?
It wasn't an escalation. It didn't grow up in this big thing. And because like, okay, I wasn't perfect. I recognized a little too late. I took the pause a little late that time, but I took it. And then he did. And then I committed to it. And then honestly, like if I could put you in my brain right now, and if you could see, it's just such a powerful memory in my brain that I'd actually kind of forgotten about, just to watch her. When I chose to just stand there and say nothing and be still, what she was capable of. Kind of like that responsibility. Like, it's not my responsibility, forgive me, to make you feel a certain way. But it is my responsibility to stand for who I know I am, who I know you are, and what we're capable of. And in that space, like, magic happens. It's just sheer and utter magic. And it was so fast. It was so much faster than anything I've ever moved through in my life. She was very heightened. I guess to give a little more context, she was very heightened and very worked up about something. And it was just, and my tendency has been to just explain. I'm going to talk at you about it, because if I talk and I explain it enough, you're going to understand, then you'll stop. That's not what she needed. All she needed was for me to shut up, stop talking, and just be with her.
Yeah.
And as mothers, we were told, like, we were told to carry so much weight, and that all this responsibility is on us. And a lot of us, because women, we tend to really gravitate towards talking it out.
Yeah.
And again, that there is really good benefit in talking it out. It's coming from a good place. But if you're just like, I'm going to talk at this so it goes away, like, it's not coming from the right place. And there's a power in the pause. And because I gave myself that experience, and I think, I know it to be true, that if mothers are willing to put this into practice, they'll see how simple it really is, because it sounds like it's impossible. It couldn't be that easy. But if you're not willing to try and do it, like that was my moment. And I've told the story before, and it keeps popping back up into my consciousness, because that was the moment where I practiced it, and I knew it was powerful because I saw it. And then it's quick. The trauma's not done to your kids, right? Like, I mean, sure, like throwing Tupperware down the kitchen once, probably not traumatizing your kid. If you're doing that every day and they know that's what to expect, like, you're traumatizing, and you rectify it. Don't wait 2 weeks and mom guilt yourself for 2 weeks. Be like, baby girl, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so reactive. You don't explain yourself. Just like, I'm so sorry. Here we are. And that's the magic. So I look forward to the women who to practice it and come forward with stories. You're like, you know what? I did this, and I messed it up the first 6 times, but I had this moment and I felt it and I saw it, and your kid, and then all of a sudden, like, then that sanctity, that magic of the mother-child bond that I'm here to heal and restore, it starts to flow, and you feel it, and then you get the skin tingles, like I do all the time, and having these conversations, you're like, yeah, this is it. So is this our purpose as mothers here in this physical world? Yes. Are there many mothers out there who are going to continue to deny it to themselves? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's their choice to make, because you get to choose.
Well, I think when we're disconnected in our motherhood, and you've kind of alluded to this, it's like we're disconnected from ourselves first and foremost. And that's what our kids are getting, is all of that. And yes, I have had to practice the pause. That's been a huge one for me. And it's just the talking, like just stop talking, like just stop talking, take a deep breath and like let this situation play out. Let them talk, let them have their moment, and it's like that. I think a lot of times it's that need for control. As a mother, we think we play this role where we're controlling it all. And when we're doing that, we're taking the choice away from the child and we're not in control. At the end of the day, we're lying to ourselves. We're not in control and we'll drive ourselves crazy trying to be.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Be the good kind of crazy, the kind of crazy that just happened. Just like, oh my God, that was crazy. Really,
Yeah.
to this day, that was insane. And it's awesome. Not like crazy. Feeling like crazy. I don't want to be that kind of crazy.
Yeah. So one last question for you, Angel. Um, you you do stay very true to yourself and you're strong in your beliefs and that's what you stand for. And that's always been something I admired about you. Do you feel judged in your motherhood often or ever? And if you do, does that bother you?
Judged. I'm probably gonna have to go back a little bit of space here. And also he's gonna that mute button. I do not feel judged anymore. I definitely did, for sure. When I first became, when my daughter was first born, I caught myself on something. I'll explain that. So when I first became a mother, because we're all mothers, I talked about that, but I'm changing my own narrative on when you become a mom, when the baby's here, we're all mothers. When my daughter was born, it was definitely, my mom, for example, was just, the boob's not the answer for everything. I was like, why not? That's what they want. It's the end. It's the answer when that's what they want, right? And for babies, that's what they want. And so in moments like that of being told as early in mothering my daughter in that journey, it definitely felt, especially from my mother, again, another illumination. Oh man, if that's how you feel, that's probably how you were with me, right? And that opens up a whole other door. So judgment from the people. I was closest to me as well. I also I put very close and very firm boundaries on my family at that time as well. And because I had come in, all of a sudden it was, the Technicolor world and the Wizard of Oz had illuminated itself to me, and I knew the truth, and I wasn't letting energy vampires into my world. I wasn't letting that toxicity in. So I didn't leave a lot of room to feel very judged. Probably as a safety mechanism because I knew that I would be. And also when my daughter was quite young, the couple years, as I referred to, where the world went insane, our boundaries got firmer and clearer as well. And less people were in our world. So I think a lot of what I moved through, and I get divine perfection, a lot of what I moved through and really coming into standing firmly with confidence, not just like I stand here, but I might fall over, really standing firmly, happened in a really safe space because I knew the safe space was needed. For what me and my husband were moving through in our marriage at that time, for what I was moving through spiritually, for who I wanted to be for my children. That was just a really conscious choice to make our world very small. And we talked about that a lot, my husband and I, just to really ensure that the environment that we were cultivating was what we wanted. We both gave up drinking, and it was a lot of harsh cuts for people in our life. So like, what is going on over there? We just we wanted to do what we knew we needed to do to break the cycles that had been really going on for a long time. So we made our world really small. So judgment, I felt it for sure. Had I had my boundaries wider and more open, I would have felt it, I believe, a lot more. And now that now that I know, I know who I am, but I'm not sure how to be that. Now that I know who I am and I know how to be it and I embody it the way that I do, our circles have gotten bigger, and we've allowed more people in ways that still serve us. but we still got some pretty firm boundaries on what's okay and what we'll allow our children to experience, and not in a way that's sheltering them or protecting them from experiencing the world for its truth. However, the world that we're offering and the environment we cultivate for our children is the world as we know it to be, not as it is. So most people are like, well, that's not the way the world is, Angela. I say, come on over to the Rockwell house because that's how it is here. And it's true. People come into our home, they're like, what are you guys doing in here? It feels different. It looks different. And it wasn't always this way, but it's really just dig your feet in and stand for what you know to be true, is how it's been. And I think the judgment can, I guess you know, like little things with every time we go out and my son will not wear shoes. He won't do it. There's still snow on the ground again, and we won't do it. He'll go out barefoot. My daughter's the same way, where she's like, Mommy, I'm grounding in nature. Do like a little goddess pose in the earth. And, you know, we don't play in the snow for long periods without boots, but he will not put shoes on. So anywhere we go in public, he's barefoot, shoeless, got his little amber like anklets on, just looking like the little nature man that he is. So sweet. And everybody's like, oh, where's your little shoes? Why you don't wear shoes on? And an older version of me would have probably felt like, oh my God, like you think I'm doing something wrong? And I'm like, he doesn't need shoes. They're like, what? And then interesting conversations come up, right? Because the one lady's like, oh, well, I just heard from my doctor, you know, plantar fasciitis and you got to wear shoes. And I was like, it's true. And I could feel her getting like, and all of a sudden she kind of stopped talking to me and was like, how are you, to my daughter? She's like, I don't like talking to you. Like you're not accepting my limitations right now. You're not accepting that I have to wear these silly shoes because I'll get plantar fasciitis. I'm like, well, go in nature, walk around in the earth. The earth will heal you. I'm just like, let me get my herbs and heal you with my sprinkles. She was not having it, and it was fine. But it's all a matter of practice. 10 years ago, I mean, I wasn't this woman 10 years ago, but even when my daughter was first born, I wouldn't have said that. I would have been like, oh, you know, I don't know. It fell off in the car. I'm not sure, you know. And it's like, he doesn't need shoes.
Yeah.
17 months. He does not need them. He doesn't like, have you ever tried to keep socks on a baby for the most part? You know, there's all these things you can buy now, like have Velcro and extra straps to keep the shoes on the babies. Does this not seem crazy to anybody? Again, if you have to force it that hard, it's not in alignment. They're meant to be naked, running around barefoot, drinking milk and, you know, from a boob. I'll say that too. The milk was there from the boobs for a reason, and all things, you know, but it's not possible for me. Whether it's breastfeeding or motherhood or patience or ease, well, it is an option for you and it is possible for you. And it's a process. It is a process. So like the simple step of taking pause, it sounds so simple. It is that simple. It's elegant and it's beautiful, but you've taken those moments, and what happens inside that pause is far from elegant or beautiful or graceful or easy or comfortable. It's messy, you know, and I've done that, like the hands on the mouth. And I still do it. I've mastered it to the degree that I know how to practice it, but that doesn't mean I don't have to practice it. And now I get to practice it with my husband too, which is super fun. I learned so many beautiful things with my children, and then okay, well, I got this. I can be this way with my husband because I want that ease with him as well, and I can be like this with, you know, my mother-in-law. I want ease there too, and all the things. It's motherhood is just that's the magic of motherhood. Really is that it's we have the safest space in the whole wide universe to practice to be who we want to be. There's no safer space than with your children, you know, and that's why, you know, my husband's like, oh, I'm sorry you didn't get your moment in the bath. Like, you know what? It was perfect because there is no safer space than my children. Even today, the support of, he's like, I want to make sure that you're here and present for like the space where I'm most lit up and on fire is in space with my children. You know, it's, there's so many stories. Like I went up for a walk with a friend once, and the dog pooped, which dogs do in their walk, but like I think like Ophelia was crying, and I don't know, she was like sitting down crying about something, and the dog was leashed around the tree and stuck in a bush while I was trying to like pick up the poop, and I'm talking to her and she's just laughing. She's like, you are a hot mess in the most beautiful way. And I was like, thank you. I really appreciate that, because it's not, we don't need to get worked up about it. You know, like you're safe. You can cry for a moment because you deserve letting your feelings out as well. The dog might be getting pricked soon by that bush she's stuck in, so I'm gonna probably get that out first. Also, don't want to forget the poop because all the things, all the things, all the time, all the things, all the time. And how do we choose to handle it? And she's like, "You did not miss a beat. You did not stop talking. You did not break eye contact with me. Like you were in the conversation." And again, it's just part of my magic. I don't think I'm better than anybody else or that that's not it. This is just me. And I've had so many opportunities in my life to really recognize that it's time to stop apologizing for being me. And it's time to stop apologizing for being strong and being committed and being integral to myself and feeling how I do and knowing what I do and knowing that it's not for everybody and that's all okay. But just being it. There was points in my life where I didn't even like my body. And now I'm just like, 2 babies in, just like loving every inch of it. And just, my husband's like, when I put clothes on, he's like, damn. He's like, you're naked all the time. Literally, we're always naked. It's like putting clothes on is the turn on for me because I'm just so used to just seeing your ass everywhere, which is fine. It's definitely, it's been a process because I feel, and I think we met in 2001 and my daughter was born in 2018. So like a lot happened in those first 3 years as well of even my pregnancy with my son to my pregnancy with my daughter. Like the clothes that I wore when I was pregnant with her were like maternity clothes. And I look back, I'm like, me, and I didn't feel good in it either. My pregnancy with my son, I basically wore like beach cover-ups, like those things when you go to vacation to Mexico, like I'm gonna buy this little beach wrap and it's kind of sassy and it undoes and it has a little sheer, but that's all I wore. If I went out in public, I'd put a bathing suit on, but that was it. I wasn't like there was nothing maternity at all. I just like I wanted to feel sexy because like there's nothing sexier than like a woman just like in the mode of creation, whether it's humans or programs or whatever she's doing. Your retreat, so beautiful. Like like there's all this creation, like a woman in that space. And I'm like, I'm not putting on these jeans that have this big, ugly brown top on them. Like I'm wearing my pants down under my belly and I'm showing the belly off and I'm gonna wave it in everybody's face and everybody wants to touch it. Not all everybody can, depends on how your energy is, you got all that jazz, but it's so just very, very different, and some people have known me and have seen me through the whole thing. And I think that's kind of the magic about it is like, I knew you in 2014 and I see you now and whew, what can happen in 10 years it's a willingness to stand in what but it's also a willingness to listen because what you want changes and it ebbs and it flows and, it's really how my thing as of late is like how satisfied are you with your current experience, whatever that is. And if you're not satisfied, then what are you willing to do to be satisfied? And for some people, I got to figure out what will make me satisfied. And some people might be a little further down the line saying, well, I just need to take some steps. I know what I want. I'm not taking a stand for it. And a million places in between. So many beautiful places to be, and they're all beautiful, just I know that you've had these moments and some women out there may not have had the opportunity yet to experience that moment when they feel, oh, this is what they're talking about. People told me one day I would be there and I would feel it and now I feel it. And it's just not giving up. Whether it's being at home full time with your kids or not giving up on your marriage or not, I mean, people give up.
Yeah, you have to work.
And they settle it because we're told, we're taught from every angle that sacrifice is necessary to have what you want. And sacrifice isn't necessary to have what you want. Having what you want is necessary for having what you want. And stepping outside the physical things. It's not I want the house or the boat or the things. It's knowing what you want. You say it's peace, it's patience, it's ease, it's satisfaction, it's happiness, it's slowing down. Oh man, I once the 10 years ago me was working an 80-hour a week job, running all full tilt, basically living off of coffee. My hair was fluorescent pink, literally a firecracker running around. And this morning we woke up and we had story time in our room. I got out my ukulele and we read a story and we like the story time in the library. My kids like that. So we replicated at home of doing the songs, the activities and reading the stories. And I even gave them a little unicorn sticker at the end. And that was the first hour of our day.
Yeah.
So I think of all the running around that other people do of like, you're already at your job and you're on your fourth cup of coffee and your kids are in the malicious arms of somebody else.
Yeah. I mean yeah, we're in go mode a lot. And especially in motherhood, we find ourselves in that go mode all the time. So thank you, Angel, for sharing your perspective and just for being willing to show up and be you and unapologetically you. I love that about you. I will say, if you want to see Angel in all her pregnancy glory that she's describing here, you have some of the best maternity photos I've ever seen. You're just like freaking goddess in the water.
They're on the wall back here, and that's our little family wall for those who can see. Yeah, and also we're probably gonna have more. So
I love it. I can't wait.
new ones. I say probably. We're just like, yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I love it. I love it too much. I love making the babies. I like growing the babies. I like birthing the babies. I like raising the babies. It's just the most magical thing in the world.
Yeah. So tell people where they can find you for inspiration and to follow your journey and anything exciting that you have going on that you want to share.
Ooh, where to find me? Well, if anybody happens to be listening, I live in West Coast Canada in the Okanagan Valley. So if you're here in the area, you can physically find me. I love in-person meet and greets. But you can find me on Instagram at what am I now these days? Morphine. Wild Mama Spirit Medicine is what I am right now. There's some underscores in there. And I'm on YouTube at Angel Rockwell, I believe is the way to find me. I have the video versions of podcasts there. Well, all kinds of other fun stuff. I've never taken anything off of YouTube. So I have like fitness classes, like mom and baby stuff on there if you want to get moving as well. Old stuff, but good stuff. And currently what we've got going on is my moon circles, something that I started doing with my children, being in space to just ritualistically align with nature and connect with their children. A lot of healing, a lot of energy clearing, a lot of beautiful movement, and goes on in those spaces. Those are physically in person as well as online. I had too many people who were saying they wanted the on, like we're far away, but this sounds great. So there are online options for those. They happen every 6 weeks, alternating full moon and new moon. And I have the conversation, which happens bi-weekly on Wednesdays. And just a space for mamas to join in online and talk about the things that matter, that are on our hearts, and get some support and guidance in terms of motherhood. And also Sarah didn't announce at the beginning. She's like, are you still a coach right now? I am a certified coach. So I have lots of capacity in terms of certification as well as just life experience to really guide people. So I bring all of that to the table. It's not just a bunch of mamas, biddying around, gossiping in that space. It's the conversation like this, just talk about what's on our hearts and on our souls, and to really show up and how to be the best moms that we can be. And babies are always welcome. Kids in the moon circles and in that conversation space too. It's not, I got to do this thing. I got to find care for my kids. I'm never that way. My kids are with me all the time. And I hope and I pray that that's the way it is my whole life. There's a beautiful existence here for us all inside of this space. And if we're willing to be honest about what we want in our lives and have that for ourselves and consider it a possibility, then man, this world is a really big and beautiful place.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. I love you so much. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for being willing to have this conversation. I know because as well, you came forward and said a few of these things were triggering for you, and you're like, I'm going to step into this space, and I'm sure it probably happened again a few times, and it's the magic, to just recognize, who we are and what we want in our lives, and the kind of people we want to have in our lives, and to not be afraid of those who make us a little bit uncomfortable. It was a big, bold move on your part to invite me here, and the same for all the things that we said today. You shared a lot of personal things too. So I just commend you. I freaking love you so much. And did this ever turn into one delicious, juicy, meaty conversation? I love it.
I know. I love it. I love it so much. And yes, thank you for being willing. To those of you that tune in every single week, Thank you. I hope you already know just how much I love you. If you are just finding me or just stepping into my work, welcome. I am so happy that you are here. You can find more of me and my work on Instagram at Freely Sarah Heredia. I also am hosting a women's self-discovery retreat May 20th through 22nd at the most fabulous location here in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, and I still have space for you to join me there. If you are looking for more consistent support and community, I want to tell you about my women's group, The Nest. We offer a monthly membership where you have access to the entire community of amazing women who are doing big things and crushing life, plus all the calls that we have throughout the month, or you can drop into any single call that we have that interests you. So you can find more on all of this and all of my work through the link in the show notes. But no matter how long you have been with me, thank you for being here, and truly, I would love to see more of you.